Hey everybody, I just wanted to make this brief message. I'm just getting over a cold. It's spring allergies have hit me and I'll hopefully be streaming again soon. But I'm having a little bit of difficulty talking because of the allergies and the postnasal drip and all of that. So I just thought I would make this brief message here for you today. First of all, I want to wish you a happy Earth Day. And I'm wishing you that ironically because Earth Day is a holiday that was invented to distract from Lenin's 100th birthday. Lenin was born April 22nd, 1870, and the first Earth Day was held in April 22nd, 1970. And all over the planet, there were celebrations in honor of Lenin's 100th birth anniversary. There were big parades in China, big parades all over the African continent, all over South and Central America. And the US government at the time was facing a massive wave of anti-war demonstrations and rebellions among the African American community. And they wanted to do everything they could to distract from the 100-year anniversary of Lenin's birth. Using Earth Day as a way to distract from it was very effective and was very key, because why was it that all over the developing world, people were celebrating Lenin's 100th birthday? It was because these were countries that had been kept poor by imperialism. Globalism, imperialism, the system of monopolistic capitalism where big banks and corporations dominate the planet. It involves countries being kept poor and kept in poverty while Western monopolies extract super profits. What these countries were fighting for when they embraced Lenin, they were fighting for the right to develop. The Soviet Union had very rapidly industrialized under Stalin's leadership.
Stalin set a task: build this or build that. And thanks to the fact that people trusted him and this enthusiasm of young people, it was possible. Remember, this was a country where people were illiterate, lived in virtual darkness, wore birch bark shoes. Even now, I think it's like something out of a fairy tale. How was it possible at one of the most difficult times to raise these great construction sites? It was only possible through the unity of the people and the love of the people for their idol.
And the reason Stalin remains wildly popular in Russia, it's not because he executed people, it's because he mobilized them to build that country up from nothing. This was a country... He built some of the world's largest power plants, he wiped out illiteracy, and he built a modern industrial country. He raised millions of people up out of poverty. And then they fought off the Nazi invaders, and then they rebuilt the country again, and a few years later they were the first country in outer space.
These countries around the world were fighting to do the same thing, to break out of globalism, imperialism, and have economic growth, to have growth. That was the essence of what Lenin stood for in his Marxist opposition to globalism, imperialism. He was calling for independence from imperialism and a planned economy to industrialize and create growth. We have to recognize that the global anti-imperialist camp has changed. The countries around the world that are breaking out of Western dominance, they're no longer doing the classical Marxist-Leninist thing. They're not atheistic. The Cold War is over. But you wouldn't have any of this. You wouldn't have the BRICS. You wouldn't have the Belt and Road from China. You wouldn't have the Eurasian Economic Union from Russia. You wouldn't have the axis of resistance in the Middle East. You wouldn't have the Bolivarian alternative for Latin America if it wasn't for Lenin. And that Bolshevism was the beginning. Marxism-Leninism was kind of the foundation of what's happening in the world today, with countries breaking out of the dominance of imperialism. And while that was the foundation, the essence of what it was about was these countries wanted economic growth. They wanted to raise themselves up out of poverty, because that is the nature of what it means to be a human being. Human beings want to grow and expand. They want to build. They want to reinvent their relationship with nature. And this is the essence of what it means to be human. And anti-growth, and the notion that growth is bad and that human beings themselves are bad, this is evil. This is the essence of evil. When it really gets down to it, the voices behind Earth Day, the voices dominating the environmental movement, are against economic growth. They think that growth is bad. It's bad for the environment. They think human beings are a cancer on the planet. They believe the problems of the world economy are due to what they call overpopulation. They are anti-growth. And Earth Day, replacing Lenin's birthday with Earth Day, and obscuring the fact that the whole point of having a planned economy, the whole point of countries breaking out of imperialism is to have economic growth. Obscuring that is part of a process of really reinventing what leftism is. And that's really what the Center for Political Innovation has been formed to oppose. We are innovationists. We celebrate human growth and human creativity. And we understand that human creativity has outstripped the narrow limits of a system based on profits. We want a rationally organized economy where we invest in people, invest in families, and start to construct, and we unleash human creativity to create vast abundance, to reinvent our relationship with nature, to discover new energy sources, to just soar to new heights. We celebrate the human spirit. Whereas the ultra-rich, the big monopolies, the forces behind imperialism, they do the opposite. They see human beings as an obnoxious horde that needs to be managed, useless eaters destroying the planet. These are fundamentally opposite views. And the reason that this is also important is because I'm looking at our country right now, and they've brought the degrowth back home. It used to be they kept Africa in poverty, they kept Asia in poverty, they kept South America in poverty, but they cultivated and maintained a layer of wealthy folks here at home. That's not the case anymore. The degrowth has come home. This system doesn't have room for working people in America anymore. And the good paying jobs are gone, and the wages and living standards are going down, and we're facing an economic crisis here at home. And part of maneuvering and keeping the population at bay is what's going on with Luigi Mangione right now. This Luigi Mangione guy, he killed a health insurance executive. I'm not going to defend that health insurance executive. He made profits from denying people coverage. That's not good. But you'll notice that all the forces celebrating Luigi Mangione and making him a hero are the same forces that condemned the Medicare for All marches that happened and condemned Jimmy Dore for speaking up and demanding force the vote. And that there is a weird psyop going on right now, because what the ultra-rich, what the globalist imperialists really fear is a unified movement of working people, red states, blue states, secular, religious, black, white, Asian, Arab, Latino, all demanding a protection of their civil liberties, increasing living standards, an end to the wars around the world. That's what they're really afraid of. And any attempt to build a unified movement to demand justice for working families, whether it's the Medicare for All marches, whether it's the Rage Against the War Machine rallies, gets attacked and smeared. But yet, an act of lone wolf isolated violence is being glorified right now. And this is part of a psychological operation. They want to create a culture of political violence in America. You know, right now, it's hard to get people to come to rallies. It's hard to get people to come to demonstrations because there's so much shit talking on the internet. People are fighting with each other. People are smearing each other constantly on the internet, battling with each other. And they're afraid to go to rallies, and they're afraid to go to in real life organizing because there's so much division over the constant back and forth, the constant tearing each other down online. Well, that's bad. But imagine if people were afraid to get shot. Imagine if people were afraid to go to rallies, afraid to get politically involved, afraid to be outspoken about politics, not just because they were afraid of, being attacked and afraid of the cancel culture and the smearing, but because they were afraid of being killed and, afraid of being shot. Well, that's what it was like in Italy during the infamous Years of Lead, where the Red Brigades and the fascist far-right groups were shooting each other and killing each other. That's what it was like in Jamaica during the 1970s and 80s when they had a widespread culture of political violence. And that glorifying this lone wolf, this guy who engaged in an act of premeditated murder, apparently. I mean, he's innocent until proven guilty. And, I honestly have my own doubts about his guilt. But regardless, he's accused of committing an act of premeditated murder, assassination. And they're glorifying that. They're celebrating that. At the same time, there was just recently a murder at a track meet in the South that's being glorified in the same way. And there was this young man who apparently was talking to Ukrainian intelligence about carrying out some kind of terrorist attack he wanted to blame on Russia. We have got to prevent the emergence of a culture of political violence. And we've got to build the basis of a mass movement that brings Americans together to demand jobs, healthcare, education, a new economy that serves working people, and an end to the wars. That's what we've got to do. And fomenting a culture of red state versus blue state, woke versus MAGA, far right versus far left, creating a culture where people are killing each other and murdering each other. That's only going to serve the imperialists, and it's going to prevent building the movement this country urgently needs. We have got to reject political violence, and we've got to build a real movement. And I'm thinking about Chicago. Every day I am thinking about Chicago and our convention coming up July 12th. At this very moment, there are people in Chicago putting door knockers on doors, spreading the word. This conference that we're doing in Chicago, July 12th, is the most important thing that's going to happen this summer. It will be the biggest event. It's going to be a turning point in building the anti-imperialist movement this country really needs. We've invited libertarians. Scott Ritter is going to be there. Garland Nixon is going to be there. And I'm talking to a number of prominent anti-war voices. This is where we need you to be, because this is the answer. Not lone wolf killing, not terrorism and violence. We need to build a real movement that celebrates human beings, that puts working families first, that celebrates human creativity and is optimistic and sees a future of our country, that rejects the pessimism and the degrowth that seems to define politics in our time. Every day I'm thinking about July and how we can fill up that auditorium and how we can have an anti-globalist, anti-imperialist, pro-working families rally that'll set the tone for a new movement in this country, and an optimistic tone that'll bring folks together to have our country be reborn beyond a system that puts profits over people. That's what I'm trying to do. I want to break out of the far left. I want to break out of the far right. I want to break out of these spaces that isolate us. I want to fill people with optimism and hope and the possibility of coming together for a whole new America, peace on the Korean Peninsula, peace in the Middle East, peace with Russia, an end to this trade war against China. So that's what I'm thinking about, and we need your help. We need your help to make sure that the Chicago Convention is a success. So I'll be back. I'll be streaming again once my health improves. We need your help to build the Chicago Convention. We need your help to get us out of this mess. Violence and lone wolf killing isn't the answer. Terrorism isn't the answer. Political polarization, cancel culture, and hate isn't the answer. We need a real movement to save this country. We need to bring people together on the basis of love, hope, and optimism. That's what CPI is all about, and I'm not giving up. And I am so dedicated to this message. I've made a lot of sacrifices in my life. I've put up with a lot of hardship because I believe in this, and I know this is what our country needs. So I want to thank you in advance for your help. Register, be there in Chicago, help us spread the word. We need to build a movement. That is what we urgently need. That's what's on my mind today. Glad I could give you this message. Hope I'm streaming again soon.